web series that work in association with Digital Creators UK, and wow, it's a great crowd. This is really strange talking on the microphone. I'm used to this. I feel like a pilot in a helicopter. But anyway, welcome. My name's Elisar Cabrera, and I'm the producer of Raindance Webfest, which is Raindance Film Festival's new web series film festival. We are aimed specifically for those content creators making serialized content for the web, which seems like an odd thing for a film festival, because a film festival is all about projection in cinema, and the festival itself is about celebrating stuff that's being made for the web. But this just really highlights how traditional media and new media are really converging and almost creating something, again, a new hybrid. And that's really what we're talking about here, is making serialized web content and actually making it work for you as well. I'm also a producer as well, and my web series is called Threesome, which is, Elisar is the writer director, so tell me about that. But I'd like to ask the panel to introduce themselves one by one, starting with James.
Hi, I'm James Marks. I've been involved in films in the last 6-7 years. I've worked for an MCN, a multi-channel network, working with YouTube creators, also being involved in funding and producing one of the world's first YouTuber movies, Ashens and the Quest for the Game Child. I'm working on web series like Ashens and, David Mitchell's Soapbox, and working with big YouTube stars.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm the writer, creator, director of the web series Threesome. Yeah, that's been my background. Originally was in film and television, working as a sales agent and in production, and then I worked in theatre for a while, and Threesome came out of a theatre play, and kind of an example of how things can go cross-platform. It started in the theatre and then kind of grew into a web series, which has now been all around the world, done very well at festivals and things like that. So a good example of cross-content, I think.
Hi, I'm Rochelle. I'm the producer of BJ Fletcher Private Eye, which was a show that was on, it was an indie web series, and it was picked up by the Logo Network on MTV and enjoyed 12.5 million views over 3 seasons. Our next multi-platform show is called Witch Like Me, and that's scheduled for release later this year. I also work with a number of big agencies, advertising agencies, to advise them on brand integration and having brands placed within web series in order to grow and develop their audiences.
Hi guys, my name's Snelgrove. I work as a content and acquisition manager at the BuzzMyVideos YouTube network here in London. I'm also a creator myself as well. I created a series called BVE, which was commissioned by Channel Flip. We had it rolled out last year. We had it rolled out on Channel Flip's BuzzMyVideos channel.
Cool, thank you. So let's, I guess, start at the very beginning, and maybe we'll go to Lisa as the creative writer amongst us. Why the web? What makes writing for the web different to television?
Okay, well, generally when you're writing for the web, you're writing short form. Not always. There are web series, there are very good web series that are half hours, 1 hour. But generally you're writing short form, which means you need to be constantly writing content that's about 5 to 10 minutes long, episodic, which means you need to constantly be thinking about your hook all the time that is going to bring the audience back. The biggest #1 mistake that new creators make on the web, and I see this over and over and over again, is not writing a hook, not writing any kind of cliffhanger. If you think the audience on the web, you've got maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds max to hook them in when they start watching your show. So you have to think straight away, what is it about my show? What is going to grab people right from the beginning? What's going to make the difference? They're not going to flick onto the next thing, the thing that's scrolling down the side, the things that are at the bottom. Why are they going to stay with this? And then when they do stay with your show, why are they going to come back? Why are they going to click for the next show? What are they going to look at? And that's kind of the big thing, I think. With television, you've got longer to hook your audience. With film, you've definitely got longer. But with the web, you've got to be thinking, you've got to grab people straight away. So you have to think as a writer or creator, or even as a producer reading scripts, what is it about this story? Where am I going to go in this story that is going to grab people? Don't think about long storytelling, starting right from the beginning, working in. You've got to go right in and grab them, and then you've got to have something that's going to bring them back again. And that is the #1 really, really big difference, I think, between any other type of content and web. It's that immediate, it's that strong.
In Brett, working at a multi-channel network, you probably know this quite well. Compelling content.
Yes, compelling content. And what Lisa is saying is very relevant to any kind of content that's in the streaming video sector. Especially, like YouTube themselves say, the first 5 seconds is the time you have to grab someone's attention, and the first 15 seconds is within that time scale is when usually someone decides if they're going to keep watching your video or not. So if you're making a web series and you're putting very traditional opening titles on it, let's say, that roll for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, more than likely you're going to lose anyone who clicks on you, because they're actually, what they want is, they don't want the opening titles to settle them in like it does on a television show. They want to get straight to the content. So I would say, yeah, that's a very relevant piece of advice. It is about rethinking as well about the platform and setting up, if you're, say, on YouTube, setting up a channel on YouTube and what that actually means, and having a clear understanding of that. Because I think sometimes there can be the misconception that YouTube is the channel. YouTube's just the platform. It's just like television is broadcast across the airwaves, but there are still individual channels. So if you're setting up your own individual channel, what content are you going to program within that channel to be able to get people's attention and bring them back? And how are you going to format that content for this very different medium to make it as engaging as possible? Things like your title and thumbnails are now your opening titles. That is the thing that's going to make someone want to click and watch your video. And then your video should start straight away with what the content is. Be able to get straight into it. If you're going to have branding, it should be, 3 to 5 seconds max. But really, it's about being able to, on this point about getting people's attention, being able to grab it as quickly as possible.
Let's maybe talk about the audience. Who is online watching, or is what people perceive the same anymore? When you were working at Channel Flip, I know there was a belief that you had to write for the 13-year-old teenage girl. Is that still the same, or is it different now?
So I think before I came, I had a quick look as well back to history, and one of the interesting things was it was 20 years ago the first ever web series was broadcast. It was called The Spot. Yeah. And so, and YouTube now is 10 years old, Vimeo is 10 years old, so it's actually not a kind of new format. And so I think one of the things, like a lot of the people who've been very successful YouTube creators do have very young audiences. So, there's been massive, the word niche is used a lot with regards to some are vloggers, some are animators. So I think, finding your audience is really hard. One of the formats we created, David mentioned Soapbox, which was a bite-sized format that was made for YouTube at the time and distributed through an app, distributed on The Guardian. We managed to reach an older audience, but within nowadays, I would also say you probably have to look at, is YouTube the right platform now? So, we talked about it earlier, Snapchat have just got into content as well. So the way that you're writing, you may want to start writing even shorter form content now in regards to how you would distribute a series. So I think audience, you go with the format, the technology, the platform that where your audience are. So that's shifting all the time. It could be Twitter, it could be Facebook. So I think finding your audience, find out what their audience is the most important thing.
Rochelle, James just mentioned the word niche. In traditional television, if you say you've got a niche project, that's almost like a way to guarantee you won't get commissioned. But how do you use niche as far as web content?
I think niche is absolutely everything, because one of the great things about the web, because we're not confined to the number of channels that we have. is that it is possible to address and to make content for as specific an audience as possible. And the reason that brands especially like things that are targeted at niches is because it makes it more effective for them to sell their brand or their image or their values into a specific community or a specific group of people, which, you know, as budgets in terms of advertising are being cut more and more, to be able to target as specifically as you possibly can is getting more and more important. I think the other thing is that we should negate is basically the quality of audience interaction. I mean, it was in The Guardian recently that you know, the guy who heads up Fremantle basically said that social interactions now, the quality of social interactions, are getting to be more important than the number of people watching the particular show. And you know, the reason that brands should be investing in shows or placing with shows, especially independent shows, is because they take the time to cultivate their audiences, to grow their audience, to build their relationship with them. And actually, once you have an audience, whether it comes with your show, you know, that you combine your next show into, that's actually more valuable than the show itself when you come to build up your own personal brand, your studio, and your career going forward from a creator's perspective.
Okay, but for most creators who've worked maybe in television or film, you make your project, you make your film, you make your series, and then the series goes to a television station or it goes to a film distributor, and they take over as far as marketing it and working with the audience and finding the audience. But if you're a web creator, web series creator, what relationship should you have with your audience?
I suppose that one of the things most of these creators started out is, a lot of them are younger, millennials. They've started out using social media, so using Twitter, using Facebook, using those platforms to kind of grow an audience and share the content outwards, because, you know, you have to be a brand as well, the way that you think, and to get the content out there, as well as having, you know, good PR like some and things like that. But in the end, things like, you know, Twitch, building a big Twitter audience, going out to people, listening to them, and I think one of the big words that people use is social video, because that engagement is what, you know, you may have 50,000 views, but you may get 10 likes, but if you've got, you know, and that depends on your audience as well. So a younger audience may be more likely to be switched on and logged into YouTube and like something, so you get an engagement. An older person may not be logged into YouTube and watch YouTube, and you don't get a like, a comment, a share. So I think, yeah, building your social channels to grow your format, your idea, has to kind of go hand in hand.
I would say one of the big obstacles, if you're making scripted content for the web, is that you're pouring a lot of time and energy into the production, and maybe not pouring as much time and energy in terms of building an audience first before you roll out that content that you've laboured over for weeks, months, maybe years. And that's a really important factor. And the more, I would say, being in the space and looking at people who have succeeded and looking at people who have found their own path, and looking at also a lot of people who have made a lot of great content that maybe hasn't hit, it's because it usually comes down to the fact is because there wasn't enough time spent on building that audience first. So if you want to be an independent web series creator, if you want to be in charge of your own destiny, in charge of your own content, if you're going to open up your own channel, I think the number one thing you need to think about is what kind of content can I make that's sustainable over time, longer than, say, 6 weeks or 12 weeks, or like is actually sustainable over, you know, 3 to 6 months, that can help to build an initial audience first before I release what essentially is my premium content, which is the web series, which has spent so much time and energy and money investing in producing. Because the likelihood of just releasing the content and crossing your fingers and going, hopefully everyone will recognise it as the beautiful, unique snowflake that I believe it is, is going to be very minimal. And then you're going to be on that track already. You're going to, by the time usually you get to your 6th episode, is just when you've started getting traction, and that's just when your web series finishes. And then you've got nothing else to deliver them, and it's over before it started. Sorry, one last thing. From looking at YouTubers, and I've come from a very traditional background in terms of television and coming into the YouTube space. Looking at YouTubers, what they do, the reason why they succeed is because they are continually able to deliver content to an audience, able to engage that audience, and able to connect with them. And then those guys who have aspirations of doing more and pushing more and delivering more are then able to leverage that audience to then deliver something bigger like a web series.
I would probably, I echo everything that Brett says, but I would say, you can actually start earlier. With our first show before it dropped, we had a good 6 months, we knew who our audience was, and we had a good 6 months reading the blogs that they read, hanging out in the forums, because it was 2008, so there were still forums back then, where they hung out and really just kind of talking to people, seeing what people liked, seeing, what kind of music they were into, what they were wearing, what the kind of vernacular was. And we actually, it was a really important part of our R&D process, because it meant that we could, we were cutting episodes to a certain length. We knew kind of what was funny, what they may have found funny or not, so that by the time we came to drop our series, we had this massive following already made up of other bloggers, other commenters from this particular niche. So it wasn't basically dropping and nothing was happening and no one knew about it. I think not building your audience first or trying to build them after you've made your show means you're just going to be pushing your show uphill. And after, there are only a certain number of times you can go, hi, look at my new show, before it starts getting old. And you've done yourself a disservice, basically. So I don't think it's ever too early to start. And if you don't already have, a following, or if you don't have time or, resources to start putting out the kind of snackable stuff that Brett was referring to, then engaging the audience, knowing who your audience is, and just being where they are and actually supporting their projects and starting that conversation is a really good investment that you can cash in when your show eventually drops.
Yeah, I just want to echo that again. That is a really important thing, and I don't think we can say enough how much you're going to need to put that work in, but also from a creator, from a director's point of view, you need to kind of instill that into your cast as well, the people you're working with, because there is a thing with actors, especially if you're bringing in actors who are used to working in television and film, that they think they do the project, it goes out and they do a bit of publicity for it and then it's finished and they move on to the next thing. And that doesn't work with web series. Threesome, we launched that in March 2013. We started hitting festivals around the beginning of 2014, and it really built momentum around that kind of spring of 2014, summer 2014. That was when we were getting press. It's when we were going mainstream. We were getting into places like The Guardian and The Observer. And that was when we needed our cast to be doing publicity. But of course, they've moved on several jobs since. So you're kind of having to say to people, yeah, you still need to be pushing this. We still need to be having these conversations. You still need to be going to these interviews. You still need to be going to all these shows and things. And they've kind of moved on, so it's a different thing for a cast and crew as well to understand that this is quite a long run for them. It's not going to be the traditional few weeks of publicity, finished, next thing. That can be tough, so when you're casting, you should cast carefully with people in mind who understand that and who are behind you, because otherwise it can be quite difficult, especially this lead cast. You really need them to get on board, understand web series, and then go with you on that journey, because that's kind of vital, really.
Rochelle, you touched earlier about brands. Is this a viable way for creators and producers to actually finance web series? Is actually going to brands?
I think if they've put the work in first, if you can actually show that you have an audience, it doesn't necessarily have to be an audience that has already watched your show, especially if you have a brand new show. So it could be that certain members of your cast already have a following. It could be that you have someone on the crew, or that you have a producer that is an industry expert in their field. You've got to start looking at targeting specific brands that would appeal to your audience and who your audience would basically buy into. You know, they're the target market for that particular brand or particular product. I think if you can go to a brand and actually say what it is you want, what it is that you want to achieve with them, and the fact that they're not going to be your sole, they're not going to be the sole provider of capital for your project, yeah, they're more likely to kind of get into a dialogue with you. But I think that the number one issue that I have when going to pitch to brands is an education thing. I think a lot of creators still pitch to a brand as if they were pitching to someone that was in film or someone that was in television and spoke their language. But the reality is you're going to be pitching to a content director, director of content, a director of marketing, director of digital or online, who speaks a completely different language. Marketing, effectively, you know. So the things that they're going to be after out of this project are going to be quite quantitative, you know, number of views, everything, you know, what we call kind of engagement metrics. Those are the things that they're going to be looking at. And so if the proposal you send to them or the pitch that you send to them is very creator focused, you know, it's about the story and so on and so forth, but you haven't put in any numbers or how their brand can engage or what kind of visibility their brand's going to have, it's really going to be difficult for them to join the dots as to why they should take a punt effectively and put their brand in your show.
Are there any questions yet? No? No questions? Okay. Video platforms, I mean, obviously YouTube is the biggest one, but there are more platforms. Almost every month there's a new platform setting up. Is where you go something you should consider? Should you always be on YouTube, or, you know, I know there's AOL now, there's a new one in the States called Vessel, which is now a premium content where people subscribe to it, taking on the Netflix model. Will there be a Netflix for web series?
I think there's a big switch to Vimeo now. Vimeo has always been a preferred platform for
high
creators.
maintenance has been quite successful in that.
Yeah. Also, the quality of it, and now you can monetize it as well. So, for example, Lee Hardcastle, who I work with, who does claymations, he monetizes series where you would pay per episode. But one of the things that we've not touched on as well in regards to not just going to brands is crowdfunding. So, for example, with the YouTuber movie we did with Ashens, that was a crowdfunded project. So,
and that's an example of once you've got your audience engaged with you, you're more likely to say, hey, can you crowdfund us? And they'll say, yeah.
But also the crowdfunding can be used at different stages. It could be to start the production, or you may have already done the production, and that could be then used to do the marketing of the project. But then that, once again, comes to having influencers that will support it, coming up with great package ideas. So I think that I would have always said YouTube was the platform, but right now I think, you know, you really got to look at what your project is, what's your audience, you know, how you're going to market it, and also, you know, look at how can I get money, so be pioneering. So if there is money coming from some of these new people like Facebook who are commissioning series, or Snapchat, you know, think of it, you know, for example, the dating show that could be in really shorter segments, you know, and that's a way of getting a brand interested as well. So
I was watching a web series the other day, which is actually released on Instagram. So it's only 14-second episodes.
So I think, always be thinking of something new as well that you can add to your web series. You know, virtual reality is something that you know, is one of the next things as well that you can add to the mix. So.
I agree. I think it's about the platform has to suit the content and the audience. The audience more than anything. Where are your audience living online, and are you able to deliver to them? I think Facebook videos are really interesting. I think the fact that BuzzFeed video investing a lot of time and energy into Facebook is a sign that it is going to be a force to reckon with. Advertising and monetization of Facebook videos will come. I think it's something to consider, and also keep an eye on Facebook video, because more and more now they releasing new updates with it, and new features, new tools, and even as a promotional tool, it can be very valuable. Because at the moment you can release Facebook videos and have a link at the end to basically go see more. So you can drive people, you can get their attention, then drive them to your platform of choice. But I think it's well worth keeping an eye on.
And I think as well, going sort of linking to what Brett's saying about thinking about the correct content for the correct platform. As creators, I think we should all be thinking when we're filming about content and what we can be adding. And I know when we did the first series of Threesome, what we didn't do enough of was the behind-the-scenes content. Because we were so stretched, we were sort of pulling every bit we could out of the money we had, that we were so focused on getting the series right. And everything went into that. But in future, we certainly, when we filmed our Halloween special, we had a behind-the-scenes cameraman just there to record behind the scenes. And to do interviews with the cast and crew. And I think that was really vital and something I think you should think about, and you could do inexpensively, even if you just have a friend with a camera just there filming stuff that's going on that you can edit into short videos, doing interviews with people, grabbing them when they're not busy. I think it's vital because these are all things you can chop up, even if they're just 30, 40, 50-second videos, things you can put on your channel when you're not releasing your series, just extra things that will bring people in that you're constantly updating and you're constantly giving them new content. So I would say it's something you can do as creators that you should try and think about right from the beginning, and something you can do really cheaply. And just think about that when you're planning where you're going to put things, because YouTube is a great platform for those sorts of extras that maybe you wouldn't get anywhere else, that you can populate your channel with.
I think also with the kind of those extras, you know, the random kind of behind-the-scenes stuff that you just take with an iPhone. With our first show, we monetized all of those extra videos through exclusive media relationships. So by the time we got to the end of our second season, we went to certain media outlets, and these were actually blogs that grew up with us. You know, they're blogs that had been a certain size and were now viable kind of media outlets and being picked up by bigger agencies. And we sold out as exclusive content, monetizing a particular blog and saying, you know what, we'll give you all of this the first time around if you give us, you know, X amount of money. So all of those things kind of come back round again, and they can be repackaged, you know, for your sponsors packages, for brand packages kind of going forward, in ways that probably weren't originally intended to begin with, but you can't do it unless you do it when you come to film.
Is there one piece of advice, if there's, for the new creators out there who are about to launch their first web series, what would be your one piece of advice? This is what you should really consider.
I would say with your project, finding the right talent to be in it, whether that's behind the camera or on it. So, for example, on YouTube, going with somebody who's got a big following, whether that's an animator, if you're doing a cartoon, or an actor, or a vlogger, somebody who can bring an audience to you. I think that's a very shortcut to getting and building an audience. That would be my top tip.
As a writer, I would say write your content to suit the platform. Don't take a script for a film or a short film and think, oh, I can just chop this up and it'll work. Look at it again. Maybe you have got a film that might work really nicely as a web series, but you need to be thinking about the structure of that and what you're doing. So don't shoehorn content in that's not right. Think about what you're doing, where you're releasing it, and write it to suit.
I would probably say don't be precious. I think, especially with our first show, our instinct when all of these opportunities, like we worked so hard to open up doors for ourselves, and these opportunities were coming to us, but then it meant that, or it felt like we have to give away a bit of the pie, or we have to not do things 120% our way. But at the end of the day, 100% of everything you own is still nothing if it's not going out there, if you're not building and you're not growing. So I would say, you know, be open to pretty much everything, you know, whether they're collaborations, whether they're, you know, new people that want to come and work with you, whether they're, you know, platforms that want to take you on, just kind of, you know, just try it. I'm not saying, you know, go with absolutely everything, but I would just say don't, like, try and resist the urge to keep absolutely everything for yourself, especially for your first show.
I think that's very, very good advice. I would agree with that. My one piece of advice would be to really make sure whatever platform you're going out on, or platforms you're going out on, is to actually really understand it from the user point of view. So actually go and use it and experience it, how your end viewer or user is going to experience it. Just so you can, because I think that's one of the best things you can do to really get an understanding of how it's going to be consumed and what you're competing with. Because I think too often we go, oh yeah, I watch YouTube, but you might watch YouTube in your Facebook feed, but you may not actually watch it on the platform as it's intended and experience how it works when you move from video to video and get recommendations on it, all that kind of stuff that goes on. I think if you were going to write for television or film, you would spend time watching and engaging with television and film. I think we can take for granted that we all know what social media is, we all know what video platforms are, but I think sometimes we have to just spend some time actually really looking at it and looking at the content as well that people are producing on those platforms and going, okay, I want to make sure I'm not trying to put a square peg into a round hole here. I want to make sure that I'm actually making something that works for the platform, but it's also the type of content that someone wants on this platform.
And it's okay to make mistakes, because
yes,
it's experimental. You can adapt and change and learn from those mistakes as well.
That's the one thing I'd say as well, that you can, that is, I think, can be the forgiving factor of being online, is that audiences are willing to be forgiving and the audiences are willing to go with you as you change and grow and develop.
There's a question here.
Should we use the Elisar?
Oh yeah, we've got it.
No, that's not.
There we go.
Regarding the marketing of your channel, once you've established a little bit, say you've got a couple of thousand subscribers, you started going and you want to explode, you want to market it a bit more. What advice in particular, possibly to you, we've taken a look at some of the creator networks like MCN and others, we understand that there's like a long contract, like 2 years, where it's a 70-30 split. We've been approached by various people like that. What do you do for the fledgling channels that are kind of just starting? Because a lot of the criticism that we get is that you guys concentrate more on people who are more established, like the big people like PewDiePie and all the massive names out there. But what do you guys do for the ones that are starting to come up? Like collaborating perhaps with more successful YouTubers, collaborating in the same niche, for example, things like that. Do you do anything like that?
So, I mean, I was with Channel Flip. We were one of the more boutique kind of MCNs, which was bought by Shy, well, now 20th Century Fox, Endemol's kind of converted. So we had a setting where we would only sign people that pretty much had, over 20,000 subscribers, and it was about building the best talent. So people like Harry Partridge, who was an amazing animator, and Lee Hardcastle, Claymation, Dan and Phil, who are now voices in the latest Big Hero 6 movie. And so it was always about finding the best. I mean, with BuzzMyVideos, they're more into finding the newer talent and kind of advising. But one of my advice, sometimes you've got to look, is an MCN right as well for what you want to do? I say you've got to find the right vibe, I would say, that fits it. And the hardest thing is, I mean, in the old days, the reason people like Tomska and Dan and Phil, all these guys have been successful is collaboration. And YouTube has changed quite radically, in regards to how people can collaborate. So I think, it's changed radically because of the money pumped in, from the big players, the big mainstream studios. So I mean, Brett's probably better regard to answer this in regards to how they can help the smaller channels. But I mean, I'd say it's a devil's advocate whether you carry on doing it yourself or you go with an MCN.
Yeah. I mean, we're finding it quite hard to break into that next level. So by getting that collaboration and marketing the channel.
Sure, absolutely. I think look, I can't speak for other multi-channel networks, But like say with BuzzMyVideo, what we do is we provide tools and services and resources for creators to succeed. So part of that might be a tool that we have that's exclusive for creators called BuzzScorecard, which basically gives you it gives you a breakdown of the channel and how it's performing, and tells you what you can do in terms of optimising it for the platform, for audiences to improve it, and how to go about doing that. And we provide, it differs from channel to channel. We provide hints and tips and the latest news and updates, especially with a platform like YouTube, which is constantly changing now, and so we're able to inform our partners about new updates that are coming down the pipeline with regards to that. The latest one is monetization suspension, where basically YouTube say if you've had too many copyright strikes or community strikes, we're going to suspend monetization. In terms of, and there's a whole raft of services and stuff like that that we can provide creators. In terms of if there is an emerging channel, should you sign with an MCN or not? I mean, what I say to everyone is yes, think about what it is that you actually want. Think about, like James has said, if the person you're approaching is the right fit. Yes, it's true, I would say, most MCNs are not going to take small channels and put time and energy into promoting them just because of the time and energy involved, and it doesn't equate. And the YouTube model is about creators being in charge of their own channel, their own destiny, and growing with their own audience. It's about letting the creators create, and not about suddenly putting a very traditional media kind of layout over the top of it and saying we're going to take charge of promotion and X, Y, Z. I think it's about finding people who are going to give you the information and the resources and the tools for you to succeed, but taking into consideration of your emerging channel, you still need to do some of the work yourself.
And I think, as Rochelle was saying earlier, the creators, you should be trying to cultivate the engagement rather than the views. Having 5 million views on a video with no engagement is worth less, I guess, than 20,000 views but 10,000 engagements.
I think, just to kind of take a step back from that, I think it also kind of depends on what your end game is. So if your end game is, if your original intention was you created a show, you put it on a channel, and the channel blew up, but you really wanted to write for television, or you really wanted to write for film, you just happened to be on the web, then you might want to be doing investing in like festivals that have great agent markets, and trying to get signed with one of those, which a number of people from BCUK have done it. When we've gone abroad with our shows, I've seen signed, so on and so forth. Or it could be, if you wanted to, because I don't know what kind of channel you have, but it could be, you wanted to make great news features. So maybe trying to do a syndication deal with someone like Vice.com or these emerging news networks like Condé Nast, etc., might be a better way of doing it. So I think just because you've been approached by an MCN, whether you have or not, that's not kind of the only option. I'd probably advise you just to think wider. It might be worth, coming to either a DCUK event in London, or, there are a number of events that other organisations have as well, and just speaking to some people about, what they've done, what their journey's been, in order to look at, all of the other options. Because I think once you can get into some really cool MCNs, likewise this, it's not the only option, basically.
Yeah, on the floor.
Yes, I would like to have the advice from the panel. If you have received development funding, I'm unsure if I should go ahead and open a channel, develop my own audience, or use the money to cut the sizzle like normal TV people do and go do the rounds and pitch to get a full commission. What do you think will be, for scripted content, what would be the best way to take time to develop?
What are the terms? Just just loosely, what are the terms of your development deal? Like, did you get it because you made a series and you're being developed for television?
I got funding for the script and to develop into multi-platform. So with money that I can either shoot or I can create a multi-platform for TV series. TV series and multi-platform.
For me personally, if I had for development funding, are you asking would you either do a sizzle reel or do the series itself?
Yes.
I would do the series. I would always do the series. I personally, this is a really personal view, I'm not a fan of sizzle reels at all. I don't think they prove anything. If you want to move on in your career, depending what your goals are, but I can only speak for myself, and my own sort of journey from doing threesome has been the people I've spoken to in terms of moving into television have been more interested in the series and the arc of the series and the proof that I can tell a story and tell a story from start to finish than they have actual individual scenes or individual parts of that. A sizzle reel is not going to be able to show your talent. Are you a writer?
I'm a writer-director.
Okay, yeah, so a sizzle reel is not going to show your talent as a writer-director at all. It's just going to show scenes. Whereas a completed series, even if it's very short, shows that you can sustain that from start to finish. So for me personally, as a writer-director myself, and wanting to perhaps in future either break into television or do more on the web, which is where my career is at the moment, I think that's the more important thing. I think that proves more about you and what you can do. But I'd be curious to know what others think.
Like Svengali was a series that was created for the web. It was 6 episodes, and then he got commissioned by Baby Cow and became a feature film. So I think if you've got that money, that's where you can go and get some talent. You look at the right talent. You could start a crowdfunding campaign as well to then get extra revenue, and then you can also look at things like SCISs. So there is extra money out there where you could get private equity that will, and you'll get government funding back on top of that. So you should be using that just to go out. I think there's the guy, just go and make it.
Yeah. One final very quick question. Yep.
I'm just wondering if you've got any insights on like non-fiction web series as well. I don't know if there's anything new, any new light we haven't really discussed already.
Documentary.
Non-fiction.
Yeah, like documentary style.
Yeah, we've done it like brand funded. We did The Dark Side of the Web with John Ronson, which was funded by a brand, I think a kind of tech brand as well. So it does work, and then that's finding the right distribution partners. The Guardian have just signed a new head of documentaries as well. So he came from the Sheffield Documentary Festival, Charlie. So I think
I'd actually suggest that unscripted, non-scripted is probably easier to get finance in the UK than anything else, because if you think about who is commissioning, it's magazines, it's Condé Nast, it's Wired magazine, it's GQ, it's Vice, these are the guys who are actually putting money. AOL, they're all putting money into non-scripted stuff.
Yeah, I would say as well that I think non-scripted stuff can be really powerful because if it's, I think it can have quite a long tail depending on what the content is. It can, in some cases, have a longer life than say scripted stuff. And I think there's, because the web is the web, YouTube is also the second biggest search engine in the world. Everyone's always looking for information about topic X, Y, Z. So if you're addressing that topic in some way, I think it's a really powerful way to build an audience.
Cool. Okay, well, finally, just Raindance Webfest is at the end of September during the Raindance Film Festival. We're taking submissions for web series if you've got any up until end of June, early July. Its website's webfest.raindance.org. It's 3 days. It's going to be a lot of panels about the making web series, distribution of web series, financing of web series, as well as screenings. Digital Creators UK has monthly meetings in London and now bi-monthly in York for those who are interested in creating web series, and it's regular networking and again discussions about various subjects.
Check it out,
to
guys.
do with all the guys here are all founding members of Digital Creators UK. That's digitalcreatorsuк.com. I teach a very intensive one-day course on create and market your web series. Next event is March the 14th. If you want to know what it's like, you can see one of my students here, Melissa, in the front. You can ask her what it's like if you're interested. You can get more information over at the Raindance Film Festival stand at B48. And finally, just join me in thanking our panel, James Marks, Lisa Gifford, Rochelle, Dancel and Brett Snelgrove.